Today we begin studying a new volume, Sutta Discovery 51A. Now if you see the letter A, that means there are at least two volumes or two parts, 51A, 51B. Now after we are now about 16 years into translating the suttas. So we know we are more familiar with the suttas. There's a lot of revising of the earlier volumes. And one of the interesting things that happen is very often the volumes almost double themselves. For example, volume 1 has reached like 300 over pages. So volume 1 has become 1A, 1B, and we apply for separate ISBN for those books. The good thing is these books are also deposited in the National Library and they are kind of preserved there. Another advantage of the new volume is that we revise them so that there are corrections and revisions and expansion and new teachings are added in. So the new volumes are of course very much better to refer to. So this volume 51, the theme is effort and energy. This 51A, they are mostly short suttas, but we do have some long ones from the Majjhima. In fact, the rest, most of them, almost all are from the Anguttara Nikaya. So today's sutta is a very short one, but a very important reminder from the Buddha. The title of the sutta is Dukkha Vajja Sutta. The two's discourse on faults. Right? Dukkha means diets or the twins, twos. That is from the book of twos of the Anguttara. Items that come in pairs. Vajja means fault, or any kind of bad action. They are called faults because the wise and the good would blame us for committing such acts. And sutta means thread, teaching, threads of teaching. And this is from A 2.1. The translation starts on page 10. Actually, the translation is, in a sense, it's quite long, with some repetitions, because here we're being reminded of the dangers of committing bad. Now, of course, this sutta is based on the culture of the Buddha's time. The Buddha mentioned certain punishments that are kind of given to criminals, to those who are caught doing bad. So this is a warning of the danger of faults, the danger of doing bad in this life. Then the second kind of warning is the dangers that await us in the future when we do something bad. Some bad committed now may not, you may not see the fruit immediately, but it will come when the time is right. So we should imagine karma, our action that is, karma meaning action that is intentional, rooted in greed, hate, delusion. These are the bad karma. They take place, let's say we commit them, but you don't see apparently you don't see the results right away. But it doesn't mean this action has no result. It's just that the time is not right. Imagine karma to be like seeds of certain fruits. If you keep them in a dry place, they're not likely to take root. But then again, you will notice even simple plants like onions or some seeds, certain seeds like beans, they take roots after a while. So even you leave them in the dark, the roots will come out, although they do not grow so big, so that the conditions are not right. And if there is a bit of damp and warm, you find these seeds actually growing. And when the conditions are right, of course, this seed will grow into a full-bloom tree, and then it will flower, and then it will fruit. Right. So when the time is right, the bad karma that we do will ripen, and also, of course, the good karma too. Another thing we should note is that karma is not like arithmetical, something very simple. You do A and then you get A1, you do A, you may get A1, A2, A3, all kind of, progressively building up. So it's not so much as 1 equals 1. It can be 1 equals 10 or 1 equals 1,000 even. Because once you have that kind of condition, it will attract more results. So karma is more like a habit, in other words. So if we have a negative habit, we tend to attract negative fruits. It's just like that we have this lightning rod. So as long as the rod is up in the sky, we will attract this very powerful, what you call atmospheric current, this lightning, and so on. So the idea is to take down this conductor, is to burn the seeds, the bad seeds, that is. So the arahats are those who have totally destroyed. They have burned the seeds, they have dispersed the seeds, or throw them into the river so that they are washed away, as the imagery in the suttas give us. So here is a simple warning that we should not do bad. We're reminded to keep to the precepts, for example. There are two discourse on faults. A2.1. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One was staying in Anathapindika's Park Monastery in Jeta's Grove outside Savatthi. There the Blessed One addressed the monks, "Bhikshus." Bhante, the monks, replied to the Blessed One, who then said, "Bhikshus, there are these two kinds of faults." What are the two? Faults fruiting here and now, and faults fruiting in the future. So here again you see the pattern of the teachings in the Anguttara. The Anguttara, the structure is very simple. They are arranged in numbers. Very often the teaching can be very short, sometimes just a couple of lines. So these are teachings usually for lay people, and they're very short. They're more like teaching notes. So the teacher would read that passage and then give commentaries and explain in further detail what the teaching is about, based on the earlier Nikayas, like especially those from the Samyutta, Majjhima, and to some extent the Digha Nikaya. So the two faults have been numbered for you, the subtitle. Number 1, faults fruiting here and now, and then further down, next page, you will see number 2 on page 13, faults fruiting in the hereafter. So you can see the Buddha talking about the present faults in some detail, lots of repetition here. So here, in other words, the Buddhist teachings are very simple. The Buddha is very little to say really in terms of content. He's basically telling us, you do something bad, you get the results. So he elaborates on this, what is meant by this. Section 5. And what bhikshus are faults fruiting here and now? Ditta dhamma vajja. Ditta dhammika vajja. The word can be ditta dhammika or ditta dhamma. Here, bhikshus, someone sees kings having arrested a robber, a criminal, inflict various kinds of torture upon him. Okay, so here the Buddha is talking about his days. In his days, in Savatthi, for example, you have a king there. So the king is the one who dispenses the justice, or he punishes the criminals. And in those days, the punishments can be quite harsh, quite brutal, quite violent, in fact. We don't see such punishments today. They are regarded as inhumane. They are, in fact, banned in most countries, in almost all the countries in the world anyway. But the point is this: criminals get punished. Now let's look at this list of terrible punishments. Now I'm not going to explain this in detail because these are already explained in some detail in other suttas, Majjhima suttas, like the Bala Pandita Sutta. So how does the king punish the criminal? The kings, that is, the authority. Of course, the king himself doesn't do it. His officers, his servants would do it. They have him flogged with whips. Now, this is the mildest of the punishment, by the way. They have him flogged with canes. Of course, this is still done today. Flogging with whips still done in certain religions. They have him flogged with cudgels. This is quite violent. Cudgels are short sticks or some kind of hard kind of object with a handle. They have his hand cut off, as in some religion. They have his foot cut off. So we can say this cutting off of limbs go back even to the Buddha's time, done by the kings. They have his hand and foot cut off. They have an ear cut off. Of course, you can also assume they have both ears cut off. They have the nose cut off. They have ear and nose cut off. They have him subjected to the gruel pot. They have him subjected to the conch shave. They have him subjected to Rahu's mouth. They have him subjected to the fiery garlands. God, you can imagine what a fiery garland is, I'm sure. They have him subjected to the hand touch. They have him subjected to the hay twist, and to the bark dress, the antelope, the meat hook, the coins, the lye pickle, the encircling the pin, the palliacy roll, splashed with boiling oil, devoured by dogs, staked alive with a spit. Now this is quite a common punishment during the Sultanate period in Malaysia and local our Southeast Asia. And then the last one is in fact the most humane of this, beheaded with a sword. Well, at least in this last one, the person does not suffer so much, whereas the rest, they are very terrible punishments. So there are 25 kinds of punishments mentioned here that are done in the Buddha's time by the kings. So now the Buddha continues, he talks about self-reflection. Section 7, he says, it occurs to him, meaning here the person who does bad or evil, it occurs to him when kings, having arrested a robber, a criminal, they inflict upon him various kinds of torture, such as these. They have him flogged with whips and so on. So you notice here again, this is the style of oral tradition. The whole passage, section 6, is repeated here, so that the audience will hear this again. And the audience will say, oh wow, okay, this is very bad. We should not do evil. And then in the next section, that is section 8, the Buddha reminds the listener to relate and say, well, this could be you. You're the one who could be facing this kind of punishment. Section 8. If I too were to do such bad deeds, the kings, having arrested me, would inflict these various tortures upon me too, namely, and then the whole 25, the list of 25 punishments are mentioned again. So this is the punishment of the present time. Now, ironically, right in today's papers, you see, in Malaysia, they already arrested the ex-Prime Minister, the previous Prime Minister, for embezzlement of quite a large sum of money in some government project. So you can see now even the high-level officials, the rulers themselves, can become accountable, can be caught and dealt with the law. Of course, here we see the rule of law. But what about those who are not caught and not punished? So there is karma. So even though you may think the results are not there in this life, they will come sooner or later. There is another sutta where the Buddha says the person who does evil will be worried, be concerned. He has a sound, is worried. He sees shadows, he'll be worried. So it's like he's living in the shadow of his house, or shadow of a big mountain. The big mountain, of course, is your karma. So this is the potential karma that awaits you in the future. So each time you're coming nearer to this bad karma. So this is in the second part, false fruiting in the hereafter. Section 10. And what, bhikshus, is the fault fruiting in the future? Samparayika vajja. Here, bhikshus, someone reflects thus. Indeed, misconduct of the body has bad, painful fruit in the future. Misconduct of speech has bad, painful fruit in the future. Misconduct of the mind has bad, painful fruit in the future. So body, speech and mind, these are the three doors of our action. Bad deeds of speech, of course, bad deeds of the body would be the first three precepts, especially killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. Then the speech, of course, the fourth precept, and the four wrong kinds of speeches. And the mind would be those of wrong views, thought of cruelty, thought of violence. Then the person reflects, section 12. Now, if I were to commit bodily misconduct, commit verbal misconduct, commit mental misconduct, surely on that account, with the body's breaking up after death, I would be reborn in a state of misery, a bad destination, a lower birth in hell. Right? So here, in other words, we create our own suffering. Most people today, even you can say the monastics, the priests, even lay people, may not believe in hell as an actual place. Most religions do not even mention hell. It seems to be outmoded. No one believes in it. But the point is, hell is not a place. Hell is not. There's no one waiting there for you. No one is going to drag you there, as it were. The suttas mention all this. These are kind of a mythical kind of explanation. We inflict hellish sufferings upon ourselves. We create this most fearful pain. Only we know that. Our mind knows that, in a sense. So we create this pain. We create this fear. And that's our hell. So it's not someone else inflicting this upon us. In fact, there is this problem in the suttas, in the commentaries. Even the commentators, like Dhammapala, asked the question, who are these hell beings who punish, in the suttas, hell beings who punish, those hell wardens rather, who punish the hell beings, those who are thrown into hell. I mean, don't they create their own karma? So Dhammapala comes up with a very interesting possible solution. He says it's possible that these hell beings, they are some kind of yantra, some kind of mechanical beings. I mean, it's amazing coming from a commentary. Basically, he's saying in modern terms, they're probably robots who that punish all these people, and that's quite an interesting thought if you think about it in our times of science fiction. Of course, that's one way of explaining it. The other way is, of course, hell is not actually a place you go to. Right here, right now, where we are, we can suffer the pains of hell. Or you're in some country which is very violent, there's war going on all the time. You are born with bomb exploding around you, and then you can even die very young, one of these explosions. So that is, in a sense, hell, where violence predominates. So that's the kind of environment we get caught in, so to speak. So that's hell. So here the Buddha is saying we should do good and create this peaceful environment around us. So then the Buddha goes on to say, section 13, terrified by the faults of fruiting in the future, he abandons misconduct of the body and cultivates pure conduct of the body. Abandons misconduct of speech and cultivates pure conduct of speech. Abandons misconduct of the mind and cultivates pure conduct of the body. Of the mind, rather. He maintains himself in pure conduct. This bhikshus is called the false fruiting in the future. These bhikshus are the two kinds of faults. Therefore, bhikshus, train yourself thus. I will fear false fruiting here and now. I will fear false fruiting in the future. I will cultivate the fear of faults. I will see fear or danger in faults. Now the Pali word for fault here is bhaya. Bhaya usually translates as fear in Pali and Sanskrit, but locally in Malay, bhaya means danger. You can also have the sense of danger in the word bhaya. Thus, bhikshus, you will train yourself. It is to be expected, bhikshus, the one who fears faults, the one who sees danger in faults, will be fully freed from all faults. So this is a reflection on moral fear, if you like. We say, oh, I should not do this because of the consequences, all right? So this is one way of looking at the Buddha's teaching. Of course, we have to be careful not to just take one sutta like this and say, oh, that's it, the Buddha is talking about karma from a consequentialist nature of karma. But this is only one way that the Buddha is talking about it. There are many other occasions where the Buddha talk of karma in terms of what is called virtue ethics. In other words, you do good, you cultivate yourself, and that way you become a better person. So there are different aspects of karma, very, very broad kind of approach that the Buddha present to us. This is one aspect.